AMAKA was born into a struggling home in a quiet village in Imo State. Her father tapped palm wine for a living, climbing trees before dawn and returning when the sun was already hot. Her mother sold firewood by the roadside, her hands always black with dust and smoke. They didn't have much, but they had love, they had hope, and they believed their daughter would one day carry the family into a better life. AMAKA grew up faster than her age. While other children played, she learned responsibility early. She fetched water from a stream far from the village, cooked for her younger siblings, followed her mother to the bush to carry firewood, and still found time to read her books late at night, using a lantern that went off every few minutes. In the whole village, everyone knew her as the quiet girl with a stubborn kind of determination. Her sandals were worn out. Her notebooks were photocopies, and her school uniform was always washed and dried carefully because she didn't have another pair, but her mind was sharp and she understood life faster than most people her age. The day debut results came out. AMAKA ran barefooted from the community hall to her house, shouting her mother's name. She passed with results nobody expected. People celebrated her like she won a national award. That same year, a church scholarship and her mother's hidden savings helped her gain admission into a university far from home. Her parents cried when she left, not because they were sad, but because they knew their daughter was going to change everything about the family. When she got to school, life didn't suddenly become easy. She didn't come from money like some students. She didn't have parents who sent pocket money. Every week she learned how to survive with very little. Some days she ate only Gary. Some days she tutored people in exchange for food. Some days she cried silently at night after failing to afford basic things. But she never gave up. She carried her dream like a heavy bag on her back and refused to drop it. December approached faster than she expected. In school, December meant one thing: holiday. Students traveled home with boxes, foodstuffs, gifts, and excitement. Hostels became noisy with people dragging bags and shouting goodbye from one room to another. Everyone looked forward to Christmas. Except AMAKA. When her roommates asked why she wasn't packing, she simply said she wanted to use the holiday to read ahead. She told them she needed quiet time. She needed to catch up. She needed to be serious. But deep inside, she had another reason. She didn't want her family to see how much she was struggling in school. She didn't want to go home empty-handed when she knew her siblings would expect her to bring something. She didn't want to sit at home and pretend everything was fine, so she convinced herself that staying back in school was the wiser choice. When the last group of students left, silence swallowed the hostel rooms. That used to echo with laughter and arguments became hollow. Doors that were always open were now locked with padlocks. The building felt abandoned, like a place that suddenly remembered it had its own secrets. That evening, as she sat at her table reading, she realized the silence was too loud. She could hear her own breathing, her pulse, the rustling of her clothes when she shifted. Even the ticking of her small wall clock sounded like someone was hitting metal. She tried to force herself to focus. After all, her aim was to read, but the atmosphere that now felt wrong in a way she didn't understand. The air felt heavy, the walls felt like they were watching, and every tiny sound felt like something moving where it shouldn't. At night, she kept hearing faint footsteps around the building, slow, dragging footsteps. Sometimes they sounded close to her. She kept telling herself it was her imagination, that fear was trying to embarrass her. But fear doesn't listen to reason. It grows quietly inside the chest. One night, after reading for hours, she fell asleep on her table. She didn't know how long. She slept. She didn't even know what time it was when she woke up. What woke her was coldness, a deep, unnatural cold that didn't feel like weather. It felt like something standing very close to her. She sat up slowly. Her eyes moved around the room. Her slippers were by the bed. Her bucket was beside the door. Nothing looked out of place, but when she looked toward the doorway, her blood ran cold. Someone was standing there. A woman, very tall, too tall to be normal, wearing a white gown that touched the floor. Her skin looked pale, like she hadn't seen sunlight in years, and her long black hair completely covered her face. She wasn't moving. She wasn't breathing. She wasn't blinking. She stood there like she had been in that position for hours. AMAKA's body froze. She felt her heart beating painfully inside her chest. She wanted to scream, but nothing came out. The woman didn't step forward. She didn't turn around. She simply raised one hand, slowly, and pointed toward the hostel gate like she was warning her or telling her to leave. AMAKA whispered a prayer, her voice shaking. Please, please, don't hurt me. The woman didn't respond. Instead, her hair lifted slightly as if someone blew air from underneath. And that was when AMAKA realized the most frightening thing. The woman had no face, no eyes, no nose, no mouth, just smooth, empty skin where a face should have been. AMAKA didn't wait for anything else. She grabbed her bag, grabbed her slippers, and ran out of the room without looking behind her. Her legs almost failed her as she ran through the long corridor, down the stairs, and towards the hostel gate. She finally reached the gate, out of breath, trembling so badly she couldn't speak. What happened? Why are you shaking like this? AMAKA pointed at the hostel, her hands trembling. The man looked at the building and frowned. Then he said something that made AMAKA feel like her heart dropped out of her body. Madam, the hostel you pointed out. Nobody stays there this period. We've locked the place since morning. Nobody can open any of the rooms again. Even I don't enter there after nightfall. AMAKA felt her knees weak. But I was inside. I slept inside, she whispered. AMAKA dozed off in the security office, exhausted from the night's events. The next morning, she called her parents, and they rushed to pick her up from the hostel. News of the cell incident had spread, and the school advisor reached out to AMAKA, assuring her that the school would investigate and tighten security measures to prevent similar incidents. When her parents arrived, they took AMAKA home and promptly transferred her to a different school. Concerned. As for Ada, she finished her university education with flying colors, graduating with a first-class degree. She received scholarships and awards for being the best student, not just from her original school, but also from the new school she transferred to. Ada went on to and live a fulfilling life, credited to her resilient mindset. The end.